Okay, so it says we're live. So if Kaylin, when
Yay.
I start speaking on your other screen, if you let
I
us know
got
that
you.
it's going.
I got you.
And I will pop on the Discord that we have started going live.
Awesome. And we are up on YouTube.
Woo! Okay.
So hello everyone that's here to talk about the book. We'll just give people a few to come in because we did start this a little early. Ellie just finished the book literally approximately 5 minutes ago. So we have some fresh hot takes, I think, about this. Because I haven't even heard what her thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I literally just finished. So it is fresh in my mind. I have binge read it over the last 2.5 days and I am ready to go.
Yes. I appreciate the moral support, Charlie.
Hey, Charlie. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Hi, Sydney.
I love the moral support, Charlie. And also, hi, Sydney. I'm ready for your hot takes as well, Sydney, because obviously I saw some of your comments in the Discord. So I am ready for some of these hot takes. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
I'm just gonna open my drink. I also, for the first time ever, feel prepared because I have my book with all my little tabs in it, ready. Right? I'm here, I'm ready to go. Compared to last time when I had my Kindle.
That you just finished it 5 minutes ago.
Honestly. But the thing is, okay, so just obviously there's a precursor. Obviously, as we said last time, this will contain spoilers. So obviously if you haven't read the book but you think you might want it, maybe isn't best for you to read it. But we do kind of go through it kind of a little bit in order, I guess, that the book goes in. So if you haven't read past a certain point, there's probably a certain point you can cut off. But because people in the Discord, honestly, a lot of people were saying they weren't sure of this book. And I started reading it literally 2.5 days ago, and I got 50 pages in, and I was like, am I reading a different book? Because I'm really enjoying this. People were like, oh, this isn't binge worthy. And I'm like, I'm sat here flicking the pages. So funnily enough, went in with misconceptions that I wouldn't like it, but actually did enjoy it. So I was quite happy about that.
We can put this at the beginning because it doesn't really go with any of our questions. But I think that part of the reason why you probably enjoyed it more than everyone else is we were talking about before. You, I think, are the only one that read it that is actually British. So the rest of us were just kind of okay, I guess if this happens or doesn't happen. And you were just saying it was very accurate to how things are. And so for you were probably ooh, this is my thing, where we're just I don't know what's happening, but okay.
I mean, fair. Okay, I'm gonna just stick the first question up for anyone who's obviously here to answer it. And then obviously as people come in, we can do it and whatnot. But to be honest, if this is just me, Sydney, and Kaylin, I'm fine with that because I feel the hot takes are gonna be here.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so because I've literally just finished it, with my rating, I'm kind of stuck. It's between, for me, a 3.75 and a 4-star. There's a few things that obviously hopefully will be brought up with the questions that I'm kind of wondering, is it quite worth a 4-star when I compare it to some of my other 4-star reads? But it's definitely for me not less than 3.75 because I sped through this and I did actually really enjoy a lot of this book. So it's definitely minimum 3.75 for me.
Right. So I couldn't remember. I just had to look up and see what I ended up actually rating it on Goodreads because I finished this book on September 15th. So it's been a minute since I read it. And apparently I gave it a 4-star rating.
Okay.
exactly remember what my reasoning was. I think it was because it was really 3.5, but it wasn't like with Ugly Love where it was 3.5 and it was because I was being nice. It was like, oh, it was a 3.5 and I could round up to a 4 and I wouldn't be like upset.
Yeah.
I think that was why I did it. Not really sure.
This is fair. No, I think so. Obviously, Goodreads is hard because obviously you can't put your halves or whatever, which is, to be fair, one of the reasons I do like Storygraph. Because you can put your half and your 3/4 stars. I think on Goodreads, to be fair, I'd probably give it a 4-star because, like, I think it did enough for me that I don't feel bad giving it a 4-star. Whereas Ugly Love, I straight up was like, that's getting a 3 because it did not do enough to deserve a 4.
Fair.
I was like, it ain't a 4 for me.
No, fair.
But no. So yeah, I think between 3.75 and 4-star for myself, I think I would end up doing.
Awesome.
I have a funny feeling Sydney's internet might have died on her.
I think it went out. It's fine. I mean, we can just keep moving along, and when she pops back in, we can circle back around.
You're ready for my hot takes at this point, so it's fine.
Yes.
To be fair, obviously, not as many people read this one, to be fair, so we weren't expecting, obviously, as big a discussion anyway, so that's fair. Although
there's Sydney. There's Sydney.
Oh, damn. Sydney's coming in with the low score here. Woo!
It's okay, Sydney.
It's okay, yeah. So Sydney's just in there with a 2-star.
I would love to hear why.
Yeah. If you have a general like why it was 2-star,
yes.
Obviously with your Wi-Fi being wonky, totally fair enough if you don't manage.
Yeah, we can just kind of pop it back up as needed. But
yeah. So what I'll do is I'll pop the next question up, and obviously me and Kaylin can discuss it. And obviously, if you manage to reply, Sydney, obviously we will just pop it straight up.
Mm-hmm.
So if it sends, there we go. So the second question being, this book is set in a then versus now dual perspective timeline, which is similar to what we read in Ugly Love. Did you find this helpful to the story, or did you find it a hindrance? Would you want to go first, Kaylin?
Yeah. Mine is, I feel like most people know my opinion. I definitely talked about it on the Discord. I didn't like it, but it wasn't that it was necessarily like, I get the point of it, but it was taking me out of like where I was. Like, I enjoyed the current time, and every time I'd get like real into it, it'd be like, okay, I can binge this. It was like to the next perspective, and it like took me right out of it. And I was like, now I have to get back into this. So I think it was like in terms of pacing a hindrance, but like not in terms of like comprehension of the story.
Yeah. So to be fair, I feel it's worth mentioning that I read the blurb, so I knew who the then was, who was Nida, who was Soroya, our main character's mum, back when she was growing up, because I read the blurb. Kaylin, however, skim read that, so she was a bit confused to begin with, but it's fine.
I got out quickly. It's fine.
But for me, I really liked it because, I will admit, the first like few chapters that obviously are the then perspective, which is Soroya's mum, I will admit they did take me out of the story a little bit. I think when it started getting more into it a little bit more, when Soroya obviously had started started speaking to Magnus and things, I could see why we were getting the then with her mum chapters, because actually there was a lot of similarities between the two of them. And as I think I said on the Discord as well, things were going really things were going really bad. Like, things were starting to look bad for Soroya's mum and dad in the then perspective. And I was hoping, because there had been a lot of parallels drawn between the two of them, I was hoping this meant that things were going to go really well for Soroya in the present and with Magnus. And they did for a bit, and then they kind of didn't. But that was obviously, it was also cool because I noticed the point where the previous like the chapters from Soroya's mum's perspective actually stopped being in the past and started being in the present was the point where like Soroya sort of hit her rock bottom. So they were both kind of coming together for their rock bottom parts, I felt, which was quite a cool, I thought that was quite a cool parallel. But I'm just going to bring up Sydney's questions because she said she had a question for us. You all read a lot more romance than I do. And this book didn't really feel like the contemporary romance I've read in the past. It felt more like a family drama with romance. Would y'all agree with that? Or I actually, yes. So maybe it's a maybe it is that sort of past and present thing. Because obviously, like we said, Ugly Love had a bit of one. It's definitely not, because obviously if the whole book was a romance, A, it would have been a bit shorter, and B, it would have obviously just, I think, been Soroya and Magnus throughout the whole book. Obviously because we had that perspective with her mum and also like the backstory of her sister, I do agree. This book, I think, sort of, which actually I think maybe comes up a little bit later, but one of my criticisms for the book, I will say, is that I almost felt there was certain times I felt like it was trying to do a little bit too much. Like there was too many tropes going on. It's like we had the romance, which obviously looked at the fact that Soroya was Muslim and Magnus was a white atheist, like a white British atheist. So that in itself was like an interesting trope and dynamic to look at. But then we had the fact that Soroya's mum's like relationship with her dad was not obviously as good as we're led to believe, and you kind of had that, like, what the issues with her dad's addiction, and then obviously also you had that like family secret with Layla being pregnant at 17 and, you know, being disowned by her family. So you had a lot going on. So like because of that, I do agree with you, Sydney. I do feel like this book's focus wasn't necessarily just like, it wasn't just a romance. I feel like contemporary probably sums the book up really well, in that it dealt with a lot of modern day issues, but it wasn't specifically a contemporary romance.
No, I agree. I think you answered that because all the same. Everything Ellie just said.
We're that in sync.
Yes.
So Sydney, you didn't mind the dual perspective, and you like Neda's timeline more than Soraya's, but I think it could have been done better, more intentionally. Okay, that's fair.
I mean, I agree. I didn't dislike it. It was just, sometimes it was very like hard to see the point of it at the point that it was added into the story. And then as you read further on, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but like, I don't know why it was right here.
To be fair, I didn't even realize, I started reading, so I didn't even realize until I went back after like the third chapter. I didn't realize that the very, very first chapter is Neda's perspective from obviously when Layla's obviously reveals she's pregnant and gets told to leave. I didn't even realize that's what was happening until like 3 chapters in. I was like, oh wait, hold on. And I went back and I was like, oh, 1999. Okay, right, we're back.
Yeah, I was thrown by the very beginning of it too.
Yeah. Yes, so Cindy, I agree with this, okay? So they introduced the whole, it was just a bet trope, and you were like, girl, what? You decided it wanted to be a rom-com again, it just didn't fit in. I do agree with that. At that point, I did put on the Discord, at that point, I was like, what the actual hell is going on here? Because yeah, it is that stereotypical, you know, like, It's All That movie, like, oh, all of a sudden the girl learns that actually the hot boy was only speaking to her like as a bet with his friends, and I was like, oh, this just 180'd, like, I didn't see it coming. That's not what I saw that going.
Yeah, that was a great twist. Not sure that it was necessary or why, but yeah.
Yeah, like,
there were so many other things happening to her and for her at that point that I was like, the girl does not also need this in her life.
Yeah, like I said, obviously I do feel that there was maybe like I think like when I think about it, this is kind of more why I feel like leaning towards a 3.75 star rating, because I do feel like a little bit too much was like tried, like the multiple tropes and things. And I think maybe if we had picked one or two things to focus on, like I think the differing timelines work, comparing the families and stuff. I love how you're laughing at Sydney's latest comment. I can see you. But yeah, I think like the family's differing timeline was such a big thing anyway, and then to chuck in this like, oh, I was just with you for a bit. I was like, whoa, okay. But yes, the comment that Caitlin was laughing at, Soroya was so mad, but she was also totally using magnets. Yeah, so this is a question later on. So Sydney, I will come back to this one because I also have hot takes. So
yeah.
Okay, I'll just stick up the next question. Like we've kind of covered it a little bit, but it's just a bit more specific. And it's just asking if you read Ugly Love, which obviously does have a past and present timeline dual perspective in it as well. Did you find that the like reading this book in a similar format was like, did it feel the same to you as Ugly Love, or did it feel like different from the Ugly Love past and present perspective?
I can go first if you want. Okay, so I obviously was not a fan of Ugly Love, but I will say right. But I will say that I did think that the way they did the then and now was better, not because of the story in the past there, because I did not need as many chapters about that as I had, but because they were so short and to the point.
Okay.
It read smoother. It didn't take me out of the story to go back and read what had happened 6 years before in that book. But also a big fan of like dual perspective books, regardless of the timeline that they're like put in, but especially not usually this way.
Yeah. That's fair. So Sydney is completely agreeing with you.
Yes.
I will agree. So obviously with Ugly Love, for anyone who hasn't read it, the past perspectives are written in verse. So they also like mostly in verse, but like not verse that like rhymes or anything. It's structured that way. So they did go very quickly, and I do agree they didn't take me out the story as much. There was definitely times where we were getting to like the good bits with Soroya and Magnus, and all of a sudden we were back in Tehran in 1980, and I was like, girl, this is not it for me. But obviously, like I said before, I did also like being able to draw those parallels between Soroya and her mum, and seeing obviously like her mum sort of struggle with her identity, and you know, realizing she's married this man who definitely is not who she thought he was, and things like that. I liked that, being able to see those parallels happen at a similar time to that. Obviously her daughter Soroya was having struggles with her identity, and you know, like I guess like kind of falling in love for the first time, whilst her mum does it in what is obviously much more of a traditional way for them within their culture, where they obviously got engaged and married very quickly, and then obviously she obviously, it says in the book, she falls in love with her husband like a year after they get married. Obviously for Soroya living in England, in Britain, and in obviously 2014, you know, she starts dating Magnus, kind of realizes she's in love, and then worries about, okay, what do I do with this information? So I did like seeing those kind of parallels, which for me made it a bit better than the Ugly Love one. But that's also because Ugly Love, I just was not vibing with Rachel. I was like, I don't care about Rachel. Give me whatever the main girl's name is that I can't even remember anymore.
Tate. Give me Tate.
Yeah, I was like, I don't care about Rachel. Like, go away. So yeah, like that's kind of for me why I felt with that one. And obviously Sydney agreed with you, so it's fine. It's whatever.
It's fine, okay. It's just like 2 versus 1 over here.
I see how it be. The Americans versus the British. Whatever.
Yep. Just like always.
Okay, I'm gonna send the next question to y'all. Okay, so it has just sent in two parts, just a bit longer. So Soraya is Muslim and often talks about Muslim guilt regarding things she should not be doing. She seems to be able to justify drugs and alcohol to herself, but not dating or having sex with anyone. Why do you think that is? I also love how Charlie's just like, I'll be on your side. This book was 5 stars. Charlie,
Love it. Love it.
But I appreciate the support. Thank you. So yeah, so obviously, like, why did we kind of think that she could separate the two in her head? For me personally, I think, and we talked a little bit about this on the Discord as well. I think for her, obviously having a father who was a methadone addict, she Charlie, I'll rate it on Goodreads right now. I appreciate the support. She have it, yeah, her dad obviously being a methadone addict. I think partly I think it's that because obviously she didn't get on with her father. I think part of it is probably a little bit of her proving that just because she took recreational drugs and alcohol didn't make her like him and didn't make her an addict, and also almost, I guess, maybe she wanted to prove she was better than him so she could go out on a Saturday night, you know, like take drugs but then be fine. Like it wasn't every single day she had to have the drugs. It didn't affect her life, you know. Obviously her father like slept all day, stopped going to work, was depressed all the time, like couldn't ever stop taking the drugs, even when he went through the health program, which I have opinions on, being a British person, by the way. Yeah, so I think she almost wanted to prove that to her, so I think that's maybe why she could accept the drugs and alcohol. But also, part of the thing that again, we talked about it on the Discord, for, and not just like Muslim people, I don't think this applies to a religion or a race at all. I think for females, like in general, a lot of, like, not necessarily pressure, but a lot of like bigness, I guess, let's say, is put on your virginity. And obviously I'm not a guy, I didn't go through like school as a guy, I don't know like what sex ed would be like more for like a guy. But like a lot of like for females, it's a lot of like, oh, like your virginity is such a big thing, like, you know, once you lose it you can't get it back, like make sure it's special. And that, like, I feel like that applies to just like females everywhere, like, not, like I said, it's not a race or religion thing. And I think probably for her, you can, like, you know, doing recreational drugs and drinking alcohol doesn't necessarily have a permanent impact on your life. But I guess there's that whole thing of once you lose your virginity, you can't get it back. And I think that was probably a big thing for this character. It's such a, like, for her character, it was such a like definitive and like final thing that she would never then be able to change. So for her, I think that's, like, for me when I was reading the book anyway, that's kind of like the feelings I got from the character.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So Sydney, Sydney just put that I think that she also struggled with the social aspect, like when she drinks, because she doesn't want to make it into a big thing in public. But with sex, it's behind closed doors and she has more control. So and I agree with that. I agree with both aspects of it. Like, I think it's definitely because it's made to be a big thing. I know she doesn't, like, in the book, she doesn't know why her sister was like kicked out and doesn't live with them anymore, but like it's like drilled into her that this is such a horrible thing. So I do think that it's because, you know, as a female, virginity is like very special and you should, you know, it should be the right time to, you know, the right person, which, newsflash, you're never going to know if it's the right person. And I think all of us can agree it probably wasn't the right person. I mean, to be real fair, for whatever reason. But I kind of got the sense that she is like anxious and like picks her like nails and things like that. She kind of wants to be in control. Yeah. And so she wants to be able to control the situation, which we'll get into later with why I think she was so upset about what happened with Magnus, and where she was justifying certain things to herself because she was in control. And I agree with the drugs and alcohol, she was in control of how much she was consuming and what she was doing. She was not necessarily in control of like, you know, I don't think she knew that she would be in control while having sex because that's not even a thing she'd ever done or even thought of.
Also, to be fair, like from like a British university perspective as well, I will say like Sydney, you definitely have a point with the social aspect, because I think like I can honestly say, like from like I say a British perspective, there comes a time I feel in just about every British university student's life where they're at a party and everyone is either absolutely wasted, there's drinking involved, and like there's drugs. Like it is kind of a part of that, and I think I can imagine it's very easy to be swept up into that when you've had a very strict and restrictive upbringing. I can imagine it would be even easier to be swept up in that. And I'm sure it doesn't mention at any point that she was peer pressured into it, which is great because obviously that does happen. But yeah, I think obviously when you do, it's kind of natural. I think like it's so funny. I think about like all of these Disney teen stars who have all now had a rebellious stage because they were so controlled. Like I think it would happen to anyone in this situation where you're almost not given that freedom to find yourself, which is why I think towards the end of the book, finding yourself is such a theme in the book. And I think that possibly did play a part in it as well.
I agree.
Oh, hold on. I don't know if you have a question on this, but I really love the setting. It was awesome. Yes, honestly,
yes.
Like, even as a British person, the majority of the romances I read are set in America. Ironically, I'm also writing a book.
I was just going to say, the one you're writing is also set in America, ma'am.
But my character was born in Britain, so
yes. Which we need to have a discussion about the lack of progression on this book at a later date. Okay,
calling myself out live on YouTube.
you are. It's fine.
It's true. I've been busy, guys. But yeah, no, Sydney, honestly, even for me, it was lovely reading a book not based in America.
I appreciated it. I was like, oh, this is a great, like, different setting, because even though I didn't know like a whole lot about it, I was like, this is new. This is good.
And also, I mentioned it in the Discord, to be fair. Like, obviously the author is British Iranian, and her mum, which is great because I got like this like fact sheet when I got the book, because I originally got it for a book tour. Yes. Sydney, I have to actually write the book.
But here's the thing, Sydney. Okay, I've been reading it, and she has left me at a cliffhanger chapter since July. It is now October.
I think it was August. Okay.
No, it was July. I will send you the date later. It was like middle of July, and I'm so sad because it was such a great part of the book.
Yeah, so I like total deviating from the discussion, but I wrote like 35,000 words in the space of a month, and then I got a job that involved working at a computer all day, and so I get off the computer, and the last thing I want to do is then go on my computer and write a book. But it's still there, guys. I promise. Okay, so we're gonna do writing sprints. Okay, it's fine.
Fair,
you guys can
fair, okay. Fair.
But no, in the thing about the British people is like, see like the rugby ladness. Like, see if you go to any British university, let me tell you, if like you say you know a rugby lad, everyone knows exactly who and what you kind of mean. And the author like summed it up, like she got that like the scene so perfect on how I imagine Magnus would be as a rugby lad who does also, to be fair, have a bit of a soft side, because I do know like rugby lads like myself who have like obviously a bit more of a soft side. But like the scene where they're on their first date in the pub and he gives her all of these little like grins and like makes all these little comments. Like, let me tell you, I could picture that exactly. Like, that is exactly what like a British rugby lad is like. Ellie, my book is set in fancy UK rumors. I love it. If you need any British questions, hit me up.
She hits me up with the American questions, so feel free to hit her up for help.
Every time I'm just like, Kaylin, how do Americans say this? Because I don't know.
I'm like, I got you, don't worry.
Okay, so the next question's about like Soroya's dad. And it is a bit of a long one, so I'm gonna pop it in like parts, because obviously we learned a lot about the dad. Like, there was a lot of issues that came up, so like he's a big character like within the book, so there's like a lot to discuss about him, I feel. So it's gonna send it in 2 parts, so let me read it out for y'all. So obviously, let's discuss Soroya's dad. Throughout the book, we find out why Soroya's relationship with her dad is not great. We also find out that he has cheated on his wife, is a drug addict, and at one point was using his son's pictures on a online dating site. Now, I'm going to butcher this name. I'm telling you all that now. What do you think about Hossein, is how I've been saying it in my head. I do apologize. If anyone can tell me how that name is pronounced, please let me know.
I did ask. I think it's Hosen.
Wholesome.
So I think it's.
Okay.
I think that's how it is, but I could be wrong.
Wholesome. Okay. So we'll start with like those questions, like what are your thoughts about him, and then there's like another little part to the question about him that we can ask as well. As Kaylin, I sent her an angry like voice message earlier. I don't like him at all. Like,
Yeah.
I was very, very happy when he flew back home, like, except for the fact that I felt, because he obviously kind of was like, I can't live in England anymore, like, you know, I'm such a loser in England. I think I'm just a loser, mate. And he decided he needed to go back home to Iran to like be with his sisters. I felt like because he did this, he kind of got away with it all. Like, I'm glad the family were able to then move on and like heal, but like I wanted more retribution for him, because he was not a nice man at all. And I was like ready for like punches to be thrown or something.
At the very least, I wanted them to get divorced. I did not think that going to just like flying away from your problems was the solution, especially because her mom was like, "Oh yeah, we're definitely like we're talking, we're working it out." No, this has been happening for years. I get kind of with like within religions, it's kind of taboo to get a divorce or whatever, but like it is 2014. Like, it's fine.
And at one point, to be fair, the mum does, like, in the mum's chapter, there is a point where she says, I know I could get a divorce because I have the evidence,
right,
but I can't leave him because he's vulnerable. This is obviously, I think that was actually in the last past perspective of her. She actually does like say, I know I could get a divorce from him because I have this evidence of him like cheating and obviously being a drug addict, which goes against like the religion. So she knew she'd be granted a divorce in the Irani courts, but obviously she then felt like she needed to look after him because he was vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think that like, I mean, that's telling about her mom, and I applaud her for that, as, you know, someone who's been in a similar situation. But at the end of the day, like, you can't fix someone else's problems no matter how much you love them. They are going to have to fix their own, and it was made very clear that, at least in my mind, and we can discuss how you feel about the NHS in this one, but it was made very clear to in my mind, that he didn't really want to get better. Now, I don't know how methadone works, so like, don't question me on that. But I know it's still addictive, and just feel like if you wanted to stop, you would have stopped to some extent. It might have taken a while, but
yeah. So just for anyone who doesn't know, In on the NHS, which is our National Health Service here in Scotland. And to be fair, it is slightly different in England, because in England you pay for your prescriptions. Although I believe, but I would have to look this up, I believe like the methadone system would still be free for you. Whereas in Scotland we don't pay for anything. Um, but basically what it does is, if you are addicted to drugs, and you go to your doctor and obviously you want help and they put you on the methadone system. Basically what it is methadone is obviously a opioid based drug, but the doses they give you, so you have to physically go to the pharmacist, like the actual like trained pharmacist, so not just the dispenser but the actual pharmacist with the degree, every day, and they give you the dose of methadone. And the way it supposedly works, which is touched upon in the book, is you get given to begin with a high dosage and you eventually come down. And the aim is to obviously wean you off the drug full stop. Now, it's a big issue of like controversy here in the UK. I personally am not for it. I don't think it works. And I have like my sister, for example, she worked in a doctor's practice in the admin department for a few years, and the people she worked with had worked there even longer, and they also like admitted to me that the amount of people they know who have been successful on the methadone program is a very very low amount of people, and that's over like a good amount of years as well. I obviously there's obviously like arguments for it, because obviously like going cold turkey can be severely like drastic to your health, like really hinder your health. um but so like the theory behind it is good, but I don't think it works really for anyone, because unfortunately there's no sort of regulation. Like the theory is, if you go and say like buy illegal drugs afterwards and get high that day, the theory is that eventually you would be cut off and like start again. But you know, it's an underfunded system, it's not picked up on. It's very easy to still be doing illegal drugs or recreational, like I mean all drugs are basically illegal in the UK anyway. But like to be doing illegal drugs plus still getting your methadone, there's not enough, I think, support for it. So when I read in the book her dad was on that program for years and it still hadn't worked, I wasn't surprised. Um,
Right.
and like it is, yeah, I think it's a slippery slope, because like weaning yourself off something is fair scientifically, but you also then right at the end of it have to have that willpower to stay off of it. And
Right.
like obviously her dad was lacking that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so some of Sydney's comments are really good. So you're glad that the book acknowledged that part of why he was an addict was because of social pressure and also racism. Like a lot of his behavior and attitude is inexcusable, but addiction also isn't a choice. True. Which is also why I think the methadone program doesn't work here, because I think there should be like mental support within it, like counseling
Right.
and things, and there's
Right.
just not the resources for that, unfortunately. You agree that a divorce or separation would have been more fitting ending for them, especially if it had been amicable. To be honest, she can still help him if they're divorced. That is true. But also, treating Hussein's addiction isn't going to fix racism in the UK or his own toxic masculinity, which are the roots of his problems and the sources of his addiction. This is, yeah. To be honest, like I do agree with everything of that. I think, yeah, I think the only, because the other part of the question that was had with him was, do you empathize with him or find it find to be hard to understand, even harder to forgive his actions? So obviously, Sydney, I think you kind of summed it up that like definitely we can empathize. Oh my wow, em-
Empathize.
empathize with him. um Whilst I've never been in that situation myself, like a lot I can understand the social like aspect of it, like you said. um but I just feel like his character in the book was just all of a sudden he kind of like broke down and flew off, and because I just felt a little bit like what's the word, I felt like like left out. Like I felt like I didn't get quite what I deserved. I had put
Yeah.
up with him being an absolute asshole for this entire book, and I didn't get like that like justification at the end of him at least like I think he was partly put in his place, but I would have preferred, I think, a little bit more of him being put in his place.
Yes, and I think the thing is like Sydney said, I can agree that, you know, obviously treating the addiction isn't going to fix other things. But the way that I felt about in the book was that he was trying to use drugs as the excuse for every bad thing he was doing instead of thinking like at one point, I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong and I could be mixing this, but I feel like he tried to blame being a drug addict on, or like his cheating on the fact that he was a drug addict. No, I don't care if you're doing drugs or not. Like, you consciously made the decision to cheat on your wife. Now, I'm not saying that couldn't have maybe led to helping you feel like it was okay to make that decision, but you still made that choice. Like, I don't agree. Like, I think I agree with Sydney that drug addiction is not a choice at all. But I don't think you can also always blame all of the bad choices you make on your drug addiction, because at the end of the day, like, you still cheated on your wife. Like, just because you're on drugs and you murder someone doesn't mean you didn't murder someone. Like, you still murdered them. And that's like a way like hard thing on there. But that's why I was like so upset with him, is because he didn't even try to take responsibility for the things he was doing. He blamed that because of drugs.
There was also, there's a really, I like highlighted with a tab this quote that I really liked, and it's about this situation. And it's when Soroya and her mom are having the like cake and coffee in the M&S cafe right at the end, like before the launch show. And what they say is, or what Soroya says, sorry, is everyone always forgets things, always pretends bad behavior is okay if it's in the past, but it's not. It's not. And I just really loved that quote, because I completely agree. Like, don't get me wrong. If you're, like you said, like using the example of, if you're off your face, absolutely out of it on drugs, and you like murder someone, like, yes, there's a leeway given because you weren't technically within your right mind, but you still did a bad thing. And like, just because, like, you know, if it happened in a, like, you know, the cheating that happened in this book, and like, just the fact that, I guess, you know, he cheated, he lied, like, obviously he abused his wife and his kids, and you know, he really just, like, he didn't support his wife. He ended up, like, stopped working, made his wife obviously work, like, his wife had to work full days in order to support them, plus raise at one point 4 children, at another point 3, plus she was expected to like cook and clean. Like, it's like, just because he's like, you know, just because he's like flown off now, and it's like it's he's gone, doesn't mean it makes like anything okay, that like it still happened. And I think the one thing that did bug me more than anything was that chapter that we finally got to see the whole family basically be like, nah, like, you're the dickhead, bye. Right at the end of the chapter, after the Neda had gone upstairs, and because she was like done with him, she had said her piece, which was great, but Parvin and Amir went over to him and gave him like a pat on the shoulder and said, "Oh, it's okay, Dad." And I'm like, no, you've just had an entire chapter where you've told him his actions aren't okay. Just because he's sitting looking sad on the sofa, don't go over and pat his back and be like, there, it's okay. Like, no. So that bit bugged me. We had this amazing chapter that's like, everyone got to say what they wanted to say. Like, you know, like, everyone finally got everything off their chest. But then we had that bit, and I was like, it's letting it down.
Yep.
It let the whole vibe of the chapter down, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Okay, yeah, so he was also a porn addict, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was also a sex addict. I don't forgive him or think that Neda should either, but his character psychology makes a lot of sense. That is true.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, the thing is, as well, his addictions also are all addictions that kind of stem from the fact that he just felt completely alone. Like, again, it doesn't justify it, but like his addictions were basically things that would make him feel something, basically. Which I think, like you say, Sydney, like shows like a lot of his psychology makes sense. I love that his wife was a PhD. That felt really unique to me. It's more complicated since she's clearly so smart, but still can't bring herself to leave him. Yes, like I loved that they made Neda the, like, you know, she, like, I think there's even a part of one of her chapters that says, I had to become the housewife and the breadwinner. And I was like, this queen is absolute slaying. She's out. She got her PhD whilst having 3 children, whilst learning that her husband's like cheating on her and is a drug addict. She raised her kids like fantastically. Like, and then went on to teach as well, which I thought was ace, because like, you know, that takes like and like teach like university students, so like that takes a lot of you know, like time and effort. Like, I'm not saying that teaching non-university student teacher doesn't, but like, you know, it's like universities like different hours as well than, you know, your school life would be. And I just thought it was almost kind of sad that she was just this like amazing woman, it seemed, but unfortunately, obviously, she felt that need, I guess, to look after her asshole of a husband. I really can't get behind him.
Yeah, I agree.
But no. So I'm gonna just take the next question up. Obviously, if you pop up with any more thoughts on that, you can obviously come back. So the next question, how do you think that Soroya's relationship with her father has affected her relationship with her family, Magnus, and herself? So this is a big one.
Yes. So, I think that the relationship with her father definitely did not help her relationship with her family, because she felt that her family was always making excuses for her dad and that no one was ever holding him accountable. But in the defense of her family, even her older siblings had seen a different side of him. She had never known him as anyone that wasn't like addicted to drugs.
And obviously I loved that was pointed out in her journal piece. I loved that it had that bit about like, I had never known my father when he wasn't a drug addict. I thought that was such a like potent line to have in her like journal entry.
Right, I agree. And I definitely think that with Magnus, I think that obviously she hasn't been allowed to talk to boys. The only interaction that she's really had is with her brother, who's also questionably as off his rocker on occasion as their dad is with some things. And her dad and her family. And so she doesn't have any good, other than the relationship with her best friend, she doesn't have any good male relationships, I feel like, that would show her that it's okay. And she obviously is like resenting the feelings that she has for him, because the one thing that like I did not agree with her whole situation with how she handled what she was doing with Magnus, but there was a comment in like, I don't know, one of the chapters, like 100 pages in, where she said she didn't want to fall for him, didn't want the messiness that came with being emotionally involved with someone like him. And I think that it's like, obviously she really didn't know much about him other than being a rugby lad. And I really think it's the big, like, she didn't want to fall for him and she didn't want to deal with the messiness of it, because she's only ever seen how the relationship with her mom and dad is.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
good. Because what I think is really unique about like this book is the fact that this family was also really isolated. Because obviously we learned that obviously her mum has her friend when she was at university, but from the sounds of things, the more and more you read this book, they don't really have any like you know, friends or family. Like, you often like, you know, often you'll see portrayal of like Asian based like religions and stuff, you know, you have like big families, and you have loads of like extended families as well, and it's usually, you know, it's usually a really nice thing, like you see like all these big families getting together. But obviously with in this book, they really kind of only had themselves. And like you said, Soroya really the only like relationship she ever saw was her mom and dad's absolutely crazy dysfunctional one.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think it has obviously affected her relationship with her family, because yeah, like we obviously said, she's the only one who only ever knew him as a drug addict. And that's bound to obviously have such an impact on you. With her relationship with Magnus, I almost think, to be honest, I actually think that her mum had a bigger impact on her relationship with Magnus than her dad did. Oh, it's the
It's
classic
Nug.
visit from Nug.
Yeah, she's
It's not a
finally
lot.
proved herself.
It's not a live show unless Nug says hi.
Exactly. Say hi, Nug.
Hi, Nug.
Okay, let's move. Anyway, continue while I try to extract her from me.
Yeah, so I actually think Soroya's mum had a bigger impact on her thing, and that's the one aspect I think I didn't like about her mum is I think her mum, and obviously it is different because religion does come into it, and that's not something that I personally can understand because obviously I don't belong to this religion, but I think her mum put a lot of her own thoughts, not even just relationships about boys, because her mum was in such a bad marriage, and that obviously that was the only relationship with a man her mum had obviously had. Her mum sort of imprinted her thoughts and feelings, I think, onto Soroya, which we find out a little obviously later on in the book. Soroya was really the only one that would listen to her mum and sit and like listen to her complain, because the other two like didn't want to hear it, or they stuck up for the dad. So I think because obviously Soroya's mum was just constantly sort of imprinting on Soroya, like, oh, well, relationships are terrible, men are terrible. What she really meant, let's be honest, although obviously, yes, like, it does play a part that she wanted, obviously, her daughter to be a good Muslim daughter. What I think really what she's saying, she's not saying all men are shit. What she's saying is, I'm actually married to a man who has made me absolutely miserable for the last 20 years, and he is shit.
Yeah.
So I think for me personally, I felt like her mum played a bigger aspect on herself with Magnus. But like in terms of herself, like on the relationship she actually had with herself, yeah, I think that obviously does play a huge part when you have one parent that you essentially feel, you feel ignored by. Like she always felt like Parvin especially was like the favorite daughter, and always like got like special treatment. And Amir obviously was given special treatment by everyone, being the man in the family. And so I think, like, yeah, when you sort of grow up thinking, oh, well, he loves me less than everyone else, you're going to start to love yourself less a little bit as well. So I think her father, like the relationship she had with her father, would definitely have an impact on the relationship she has with herself, and like the self-worth that she has, and the like self-confidence. Like I think that definitely would play a part.
I agree. So I know like your parents are still together.
Yeah. 31 years happily married,
which is very exciting, but I can
very
also tell
lovely.
you from the perspective of someone who my parents are not together. I do not speak to my dad except on rare occasions. I was in a similar situation with Soroya, though it's not exactly the same. Because like especially I'll be honest, hi self-reflection time in the middle of a book club chat. I tend to cling to most relationships that I have with any kind of male because I didn't have a good father figure in my life until I was 8, and I appreciate my stepdad for what that is, but it's not like his daughter and I didn't get along and I couldn't really have a relationship with him because she was upset by him having a relationship with someone else. But also, my dad, I never got to know I have an older sister who's I think almost 40 at this point, who I've not seen since I was 4. And we don't speak. And I am like resentful of her because while she does not like my dad, they don't talk. She and her little brother got him when he was still a decent parent.
Mm.
And by the time I came around, he was just done and didn't want anything to do with anyone or any kids. So I have never known a non-horrible parent figure.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, like, when you know that someone didn't want you, doesn't show you any love, doesn't text you on your birthday, things like that, like, you definitely, your self-worth goes a little down every time it happens, and you try to justify yourself. You're like, oh, this is not what it is. But I also like to control a lot of situations in my life because that's a situation I can't control. So I control everything I can, and I think Soraya did the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, like, after a while, like, it's just absolutely bound to have an effect on how you view yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You thought it was Sydney, you thought it was interesting that Soraya was willing to stand up to her brother. Yeah. I think the thing is, I think Soraya actually did, like, Soraya had this internal strength, I think, that was squandered a lot of the time. Like, she stood up for herself and it got squandered a lot. But, like, obviously when it really mattered as well, kind of, again, in that chapter where they're dealing with the dad, and I think, yeah, I thought it was really cool because, like, you know, I think although she, you know, through a lot of the book, she kind of thinks of herself as, I guess, maybe a little bit weak and, like, you know, unloved and stuff like that. But actually, like, I do think there was this, like, inner strength to her because she was the one that stood up for her mum and, like, you know, got hit because of it. And I think, like, you know, like, for example, I think we can all agree that Parvin would never have done that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you know, I think that's definitely a thingy. And also, Sydney, it's fine. I hope the work catastrophe is okay.
I'm sure that it is very much a catastrophe because I can only imagine being an RA because I could never have handled it in college.
Sydney says she's the reverse of you, Kaylin. Her brother's in your position, but she got to see her dad pre-addiction. It was really heartbreaking to read from Soraya's perspective, knowing my brother might feel similarly. Like, yeah, I think I liked as well the chapter where she obviously does her reading. First of all, her article entry actually made me cry. And the fact that Magnus was there at the back. But also the fact that the girl comes up to buy the magazine afterwards, and she said, you know, it's like, it's nice to hear that, you know, someone actually knows how I'm feeling. Obviously not nice, but, and Soraya obviously goes, yeah, shit in it, which is so British, by the way. But yeah, I think there is a lot of aspects of this book that I think a lot of people could relate to as well, and, like, could touch upon.
I agree.
So now that we have dealt with all the heavy things,
yes,
we're gonna touch upon Magnus now and that whole Shazam. And again, this is a bit of a longer question, so it's just split over two, so I'll just quickly read it out. When Soraya finds out about the bet that took place, she gets upset that Magnus is using her, though she has similarly been using Magnus. Do you think it was right for lad time? Yes, Sydney. Do you think it's right for Soraya to be upset with Magnus? Do you know what? I'm gonna go first because I've got hot takes. So, right, okay. When I first read this chapter, obviously I was absolutely raging because I was like, oh my god, it was all a bet, like, how dare he, blah 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 blah. But I do think that, to be fair, obviously there's, like, some sort of ambiguity about, did he know about the bet, or, you know, like, is he part of the bet? But, like, originally I was pissed off because he finds out, like, about her using him because he read her diary. Like,
that's the next question. Don't go into it. That's the next question.
Did I skip? Okay, we're gonna pretend I didn't have that hot take yet.
You can have that hot take momentarily.
In that case, yeah, basically, I don't think you can compare saying, "Oh, I'm gonna sleep with a virgin for 50 pounds." I don't think you can compare that to "I want to kiss my first boy." So, I'm gonna say that, no, yes, it was right for Soroya to be upset with him because, yeah, nah. Like,
I agree. I think it was okay to be upset, but I wish she would have. I wish that I would have had. Like, I wish that she would have given him a chance to explain, because you obviously do find out later that he literally didn't. He wasn't part of the bet. It was just his friends, and like, unfortunately, because I'm friends with many men, that is a thing they do.
Sorry, I'm just
I saw it, I was laughing.
I'm having hot takes, Charlie, prematurely, so we'll come back to them.
Okay. But so, like, I wish that she would have just waited for him to like tell her, because he was trying to tell her that it wasn't a bet, like whatever at that point, and she just like flew off the handle and was like, "No, I want nothing to do with you. I hate you." But I do also wish that the friend, I don't know what her name was, but I think it was the girl,
Rosie.
Friend.
Yeah, Rosie.
Yeah, I wish she wouldn't have put it the way she did. Like, because I feel like to some extent, I think she was trying to cause a little controversy there. Because, like, she just brought it up like it was something that Soraya should know about.
But so the thing is as well, the one thing though that I will say, if I was in that situation, so I do agree, obviously, like, if you're gonna find out, like, the guy that you basically have fallen in love with, but she won't admit to herself at this point she's fallen in love with him, the guy that you've fallen in love with supposedly is possibly only with you to sleep with you for a bit. Obviously, you're going to be mad as hell. You're also going to be absolutely heartbroken. But the one thing that I kind of, like, I agree, you know, he wasn't part of the bet, and we supposedly are meant to take his word for it. I still think his groveling at the end should have been more significant. But the thing is, in that situation, should he not have told all his friends to absolutely fuck off? I mean, okay, yes, I understand boys can be like that sometimes. You know, these cliches come from somewhere at the end of the day that we see in all these rom-com movies. But I feel if he liked her as much as he did, because at this point he had told her he was starting to fall in love with her, would you not go to your friends? This bet is absolutely disgusting. This is a girl I actually really like. You need to cut it the fuck out. Because I feel like that's what you would do.
But I think he did, at least maybe not exactly in those words. Again, it's been a minute.
He told them him and Soroya had slept together to get them to shut up.
I mean, like, yes.
How good of friends can they be if you have to lie about sleeping with your girlfriend to get them to stop?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But I will just say, boys are weird. And the thing is he could have told them to stop, but they probably wouldn't have. They would have just done it behind his back, which I almost think is worse.
Yeah.
I wish he would have just told them, "No, we haven't slept together, leave it alone," instead of getting upset. But
yeah. So just before I read out Sydney's poem, though, I will say that was the only part of the book I felt was kind of Americanized.
Oh, yeah.
Because I will say, yes, I'm sure, like, 100% it does happen here in the UK, but I did feel that was quite an Americanized cliche. It doesn't happen, like, that much for it to be, like, such a thing that it was kind of brought up to be. But
it very much read like frat boys, which I had friends that were frat boys, so I can tell you that 100% happens. But yeah, it was very Americanized.
Yeah. So Sydney says she, as in Soroya, was mad pretty often, yes, about things that his roommates were doing, like the porn mags in the bathroom, which was weird in the first day. Honestly, right, what's weird about that, I feel like I can say for everyone, is when was the last time you knew of a 20-plus-year-old guy in the 21st century buying a porn mag? Like, let's be honest, all they have to do is go on their phone and get free streaming sites.
And even if they did, who leaves them in the bathroom? Yeah, they're not in the bathroom.
That for me was such a weird thing to stick in. Like, it took me right out the story because it just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I would be really interested to know, like, from the author's perspective, why she included that. I feel like, unfortunately, I feel like that was one of the instances where I felt something was included to try and emphasize the fact that Soroya obviously was, you know, like, inexperienced.
That's why I was laughing. That's why I started laughing.
Oh my god, Sydney as well. Even Soroya's dad knew to stream porn on his laptop.
It was the weirdest
It was
inclusion of
such a
everything.
weird thing. I feel like it was only done to point out that she was obviously Muslim, had obviously had experienced things like this, because, you know, she'd been at university for 3 years by this point. And like, but like, you know, I feel like it was literally done so she could come back down the stairs and be like, ew, I'm really uncomfortable with that. Which, like, don't get me wrong, if I walked into like my possibly boyfriend's flat and saw a bunch of porn mags in the bathroom, I would look at it. To be honest, you know what I'd probably do? I'd probably take a picture and send it to Kaylin and be like, oh my god, what the hell?
And I would be like, you should probably leave immediately.
Yeah, like that's what I would do. And obviously, again, there is that difference, because obviously, like, I'm not Muslim, but I still feel like it, like, yeah, it was such a weird thing to include in the book, and like, I just didn't get it.
Well, I almost wonder if she included it, because now that I'm thinking back on it, he immediately went up there, got them, threw them in the trash, and there were like various times that his roommates did things, or like the picture of him and the girl that he took down and threw away. Like, I almost think she included it as a thing of like, he obviously cares about you, even if you don't want to care about him, because he's gonna do these things for you.
Yeah. But there's definitely other ways they could have shown that he cares.
Just ripping the picture off the wall, totally enough. Definitely have had to have that happen before. Went into my ex's dad's house and there were pictures of his ex-girlfriend, and I was like, I'm sorry, like, I get this isn't my house, but this is uncomfortable. And he just goes, okay, grab the pictures off the wall and put different pictures.
Yeah, I thought the picture thing, it was cute. It was kind of, the picture was kind of marred, unfortunately, at that point, by their severe lack of communication that they had going on. But the aspect of the picture thing was cute.
Yes,
and now, just because I cannot wait for these hot takes.
Yes, go ahead. Please remove yourself. Oh my god, Charlie. Hold on. You'll have to wait for his to pop up.
I was going to say, his comment's going to take a minute for my thingy.
It's right there. It's right there. I had already seen it. This was like, you can't move on yet.
Buying a Playboy in 2021 is serial killer behavior. No, I will not elaborate. Fun fact, the Playboy mansion has had a severe facelift, and they've added like 4 different extensions. I saw on my Snapchat stories the other day, so
interesting.
Anyway. Okay, right, guys, you ready? Magnus only finds out about Soroya using him from reading her diary. Was Magnus right for being upset with Soroya? Should he have continued to read her diary when it became clear that that was what it was? Right. Who in their right mind is going about... Okay, first of all, going about reading the girl they love's diary. Rude. Second of all, he's read it before, like, they were having, like, issues. Like, why is this boy going out and you know, I kind of want to know how long ago he read the diary and how long he's been sitting on this information, because it wasn't really explained.
I will interrupt your thing. I'm pretty sure the night that there's a scene in the book where she talks about he came over, he was going into her room, and she hid the diary underneath of her pillow. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the night, because she got up to do something, and I'm sure that's the night he read it.
Which was like really early on. So first of all, this boy clearly has trust issues. Second of all, Charlie, he was in the right for reading her diary, because she should always act with intent to be messy and cause drama. Charlie, stop it. No, I just feel like, first of all, I find it just like funny that she thought a good hiding place for her diary was under her pillow. First of all, like, we're not gonna go into that one. But yeah, boys should not have been out here reading her diary, because who are you? because this is the thing, I felt like I was saying as I was reading the book, I made a comment in the Discord about how I felt bad that Magnus was constantly opening himself up a little bit more and a little bit more, and Soroya was never doing that. Like, well, she was a little bit, but like a very minute amount. And I felt bad. I was like, oh, he's telling her about his dad. He's telling her about like his childhood, and she's like just keeping all these secrets from him. But then turns out boy's been reading her diary, so like at this point she doesn't even need to communicate because he's just reading her diary.
Well, I kind of also I wonder. I would just like to be clear. Magnus is not allowed to be upset at Soroya for writing in her diary. He can be upset about being used, but again,
I mean, it was for a kiss. Like, come
on. Right. It wasn't.
Like,
it was for a kiss.
It doesn't make it right. I'm not saying that, but there is a definite difference. Like the fact he tried to use it as an argument against he supposedly having a bet with his friends to sleep with a virgin. Well, like that's not a comparison you make.
No, I agree. And I think the other thing is like, but I almost wonder, because that did happen pretty early on in the book. I almost wonder if he read it and then the reason he sat on the information was because she didn't immediately break up with him, so he knew this. So I wonder if he just was like never going to say anything to her about knowing about it, and then because she got upset about that, he just had a little anger fit and told her.
Yeah.
Also, he just shouldn't have read the diary anyway, but you know, that's why I don't write things down and why I don't keep things.
We got trust issues up in here.
Yeah, if it's not written down and people can't see it, then no worries, no one's gonna know.
I also just absolutely love, back to the Playboy comment, Cindy, you've said that that's because 17-year-old girls be wearing Playboy merch for some reason.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, like honestly, it was for me, it was like, okay, I actually, funnily enough, I felt there was a not like obviously a direct comparison, but like almost like a teensy weensy little parallel between the fact that Soroya's dad blamed like everything he did on his drug addiction, like that was the root cause for everything. And then you've got Magnus here, in the one time he like communicates badly because he's been like giving her all his secrets, he basically tries to completely deflect the blame off of him by like turning around and being like, oh well, hold on, because yeah. And I like, that was like a little interesting comparison for me. But I don't get where a genuinely smart 24-year-old man decided that a good argument to, I've just found out that your friends all had a bet that you would sleep with me. I don't understand how he thought a good argument to that was, yeah, but you wanted to use me to get your first kiss. Yeah, dude, she kissed you for the first time after like the first date and then kept kissing you for months. Like, what's your point?
Right.
Like, obviously, it was more than that.
And I am sure she probably wrote in her diary many times about how she was going to break up with you and then never did.
Yeah, that was like, so that was the thing as well, to be fair. And that was one of the things that I was mentioned on the Discord as well. The fact that there was a little bit of that repetitiveness with the fact that, you know, constantly her talking about her guilt, the fact that, you know, I'm gonna break up with him, and then all of a sudden, obviously they break up, so just all of a sudden that stops. Like, we had it in like every chapter up until this point, and then it just stops, and I'm like, oh, does your guilt just go away because like you're not with him anymore?
Right. It's a very weird transition. There were like a few very like weird transitions that I feel like an editor probably should have been like, hey, well, this is already pretty long. You can take this thing out and you can take a paragraph to explain the change that we have here.
Yeah, like, so there's not really a question for it, to be fair, but Sydney, obviously you did bring it up on the Discord last night, and that was the length of the book. So the book is 448 pages, so like, you know, it's a little bit above average for like a paperback, I would say. Like that's it's not like super huge because the way the like the chapters are formatted. There is like a couple of blank pages, and like half pages and stuff, and the writing's not like tiny or anything. So like it is, it's not a massive book. It's not necessarily a big book, but it's a little bit more than like what you'd expect, especially because this is marketed as a romance. So it's a fair few more pages than you'd expect. I don't think there was necessarily that many things that as I was reading it, I was like, oh, okay, you can get rid of that. Like that's pointless. But like there was a few things, obviously, like I said, that were quite repetitive. That I felt we maybe didn't need to have like said to us that many times in the book. And then again, like you said, a couple of weird transitions that maybe, again, I think this probably comes down to what we mentioned earlier about the like being so many different things going on in this book. I think that obviously attributed to the length of the book. And it maybe would have been slightly better if like the focus had been slightly more on something else. Because realistically, obviously, once Magnus and Soroya break up, which I would also like to point out, I am not a fan of long breakup periods. I can accept like 2 weeks, like a month is maybe my maximum, but I am not a fan of like, oh, we've been broken up for like 4 months, oh, but we still madly in love with each other. Like I personally am not a fan of that. So like once her and Magnus break up, there's really no romance scenes after that apart from their like reconciliation scene. So like it felt very strange that we had gone from like obviously all these like kind of cute scenes where he's all like, I'm gonna teach you, you're perfect, things like that, which hats off for body positivity. But and then all of a sudden it kind of stopped because they broke up, and then we just didn't get any romance until the reconciliation. So I find it funny that this is marketed as like a romance book.
Yes, it's not wrong.
Yeah, I feel like we got literally one chapter where they reconciled, and I obviously, as I read that literally just before the live show, I was sending Kaylin voice notes, and like, don't get me wrong, it was cute. He said he loved her, and I was like, yes. But I also felt like there was a severe lack of miscommunication at that reconciliation scene. How he was like, oh, I don't want to talk about girls in the past, like I want to focus on us, which I understand the logic of, but the girls in the past was a massive like bump in your relationship, and y'all have not climbed that bump and gotten over it because you won't talk about it. And like I felt like he was all like, oh, like meet me afterwards because I want to talk. I don't think they actually talked. They made out on a table. Realistically, if we want to be pedantic. So I also agree, Sydney, that the ending I felt was rushed. And then obviously we got that last chapter with obviously Soroya and her family and Layla and obviously Sara, which I think was nice. And like I was getting towards the end, I was like, oh my god, I am gonna actually like get a conclusion on this family situation, right? Which luckily obviously we did. So yeah, I would agree. I do think there was like some bits. I didn't necessarily feel it was like so long. Like I said, I flew through this in 2.5 days, but there was definitely a few rushed bits, a few drawn out bits, and then maybe a few bits you could have pulled from the middle.
Right.
Okay, so this next question, so we're just down to the last 3 questions. They're all like pretty basic questions that we ended Ugly Love with as well. But I actually find this question really hard. In Ugly Love, how I had like the only favorite character I had was Cap because the rest were all pissing me off. Similar for me in this book, although they piss me off less. I think honestly my favorite character is like Oliver at this point. Because it's like the thing is, I didn't dislike Soroya. That's the thing. I actually really liked her character. Whereas like in Ugly Love, I did feel like actually towards the end, I actually disliked Tate a lot. So I didn't dislike Soroya's character. I really appreciated the honesty and the realism of freshly graduated 21, obviously like British university graduated 21-year-old struggling to like make her way in life. Like it was so realistic. Like I literally went through the same things myself, just with a COVID pandemic chucked in there. Like finishing uni, trying to find a graduate job, some of your friends moving on, like kind of thinking you're a failure, like how have I not found a job yet when like all my friends are, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like I felt that was like so realistic. And I really liked that theme in the book, and obviously like like a lot of Soroya's inner thoughts like felt realistic. So I did actually like her. I'm just not sure if she was my favorite character.
Yeah, so similarly, I didn't, other than my least favorite character, I didn't necessarily hate with a burning fiery passion as many people as I did in Ugly Love. But I will say, I guess my favorite character probably was Soraya, but only because there's literally, I marked like, this is the weirdest thing that I marked, but it's like absolutely a thing. And I marked this because it was very mean. It was said Soraya had been too young to actually remember Layla when she lived at home. This was both a blessing and a curse. She couldn't miss her sister because she didn't know her, but wasn't it weird to not miss a sister that you hadn't seen for 15 years? And I have like a very similar thing where it's like my sister and I don't talk, so I'm like, how do I miss her? But also like, we've not spoken in a very like 20 years. It's a very long time. So I think that's probably why. That's probably why she's my favorite, because I connected with her.
I was gonna say, I think there's a lot of connectability with Soroya, to be fair, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sydney has just said, I just realized the plotline about her being an artist never really got resolved, unless I forgot about it. I think, to be fair, for that plotline, the resolution is like the journal that her, Oliver, and Priya put together, because she got to illustrate every journal entry. And obviously we got to see right at the end that she had got herself a part-time 3-day-a-week paid internship at a like marketing company, and she kind of realized, I think obviously the resolution of that plot line, I think, was her admitting to herself the art was something she actually like cared about and wanted to pursue, and that wasn't a stupid thing, and that was okay. I think that was kind of the resolution of that kind of plot line, I guess. But it definitely wasn't like as like big for what I think they kind of implied. Obviously, when her and Magnus were having a lot of discussions about the art versus the writing, I think they did, it was kind of implied it would maybe be like a little bit bigger. But yeah. And then obviously Sydney, if you manage to answer the favorite character, if you have one, considering your 2-star rating. But obviously also lastly, we have who is your least favorite character? And the thing is, see, for me, I actually genuinely, and I've shocked myself, but it was the last chapter that she featured in just pissed me off so much. I think it's a tie for me between Soroya's dad and also Soroya's sister, Parveen, because the last chapter we got, like with the two of them, where Soroya goes into her room and she's like, can we not fight anymore? Her sister's still an utter bitch to her. And I'm like, girl, like, I get you also lived with a father who was an addict, but like he was so obviously different with you. Like, you're also older. Like, okay, 21 is like old, like as in you're not a child, but you're also like definitely not a fully formed adult at that age either. Like, and this poor girl, Soroya, like her dad like didn't love her. Like, her dad literally hit her, and you sort of just walked in and were like, oh, okay. And obviously it is explained like by the mum that that's her, like that's Parveen's way of dealing with the situation with her dad, which is fair enough. But once it all came out into the open and you all found out about your older sister, and obviously the dad had flown back to Iran and I guess kind of like just abandoned the fact that he was a dick and got away with it, like, could you not be nicer to your poor sister, like, who literally was hit by your father and like because she was defending your mother. Like, so her character really pissed me off throughout most of the book, but then really did my like tits in right in that like there was a good chance for a bit of redemption there, and we didn't get it. So the dad and the dad is still like up there, but like Parveen's like here. Like,
yeah, I agree. Parveen was not my favorite, but I will hold out for the fact that I hated her dad with the burning passion by the end of the book.
Mm-hmm. Also, so Sydney, she thought Sydney. I actually thought the characters were the strongest part of the book. I thought the plot pacing were a mess, though. I mean, fair. I think Soroya was my fave, and her brother. See, was your least fave. I think the brother of I could deal with because and like this doesn't make it right, but because all of the sort of misogynistic and I want to say outdated, but that's because I appreciate that I am privileged by being able to say that that's outdated for men to think like, you know, women belong in the kitchen and things like that. So it seems outdated to me, whilst I appreciate it might not seem outdated to everyone in everyone's culture as well. But I think for me, he was tolerable because we only ever really heard about it from Soroya's perspective. There was never really a scene where he actually was like just obviously there was a couple of comments, but there wasn't like a scene where he was just straight up an absolute dickhead for like 3 to 5 pages. So like for me, I could kind of deal with that, and then obviously I actually kind of liked, I guess, that the brother was the catalyst at the end for them all facing their father, because I guess for the book's like purpose and for like the family obviously that's represented in the book, I feel like if the brother hadn't have got behind them right at the end and gone to confront their dad, they maybe like wouldn't have had as much success confronting their dad. So like for those reasons, he wasn't like a least fave for me. But like his character, I guess his character served a purpose, I think.
Yeah.
Like to like show those things. So oh, sorry, Sydney, I'm just loading your next comment. I liked reading about him less than Hossein because he was so much less developed. Yeah, I mean, I do get that. Like, I think, like I said, obviously, just before I think the character of Amir was put there to show, like, to prove a point, I guess, like, to show that, you know, in some instances in this life, I guess, there are families where that would be the case, and I guess it was kind of to highlight this fact, but without giving him like a character or a soul. So like you said, he was like less developed. So I get that, but yeah, I I don't know. I just the dad just every time like the dad did something like every in Neda's like past chapters as well. Every time it just got worse and worse and worse. And I was like, oh my god, what else is this man about to do? Because I'm ready to like throw him against a wall and punch him myself.
Yep.
Oh. And then just obviously lastly, we have kind of touched upon this obviously by saying we felt it was rushed, but the last question was, did you like how the book ended?
I guess I'll go. Again, it's been a minute since I read it. I kind of like skimmed over it before we got on. I didn't dislike it. I thought it was nice that her older sister was able to come back, you know, that they were trying to make that better, and her mom realized that, like, you know, she shouldn't have only been sending her money. Like, she should have fought for her to stay regardless of what happened and regardless of their culture. That, you know, her mom realized abandoning your child is not, you know, the best answer to the situation. But I agree, it was rushed, and I wish there was more about Magnus and Soraya, because the book was supposed to be a romance. And while I do agree that at the beginning it satisfied that, as you also said, after they broke up, there was like nothing. There was the small, they kissed, they made out, and then that was that. And I was like, but I'm missing, like, I didn't need a romance book that had all the spicy scenes or any of that by any means. Like, obviously, I realized that was not what we were getting because she was, like, trying to decipher if that was something she wanted. But I feel like there could have been way more cutesy romance, non-spice related stuff there.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I felt for obviously how long the book was, I did feel a little bit like the last 2 chapters were rushed. I agree. I would have liked to see a little bit more from Magnus. Obviously, I already mentioned earlier, I definitely felt that scene should have been way longer and filled way more with like communication. But I think, like, see, when I got to the end of the book, I did have sort of like a happy sense that, like, sort of everything had slotted into place, which was nice. And I think, yeah, do you know what, it is kind of a case, I think, of the book being slightly like, I guess misrepresented to the genre, I guess, because yes, there's a romance element to it, and obviously the romance, I think, is important because it obviously leads to a very climactic scene, obviously, with her father, you know, hitting her and like pushing her mum, and it obviously allows the character of Soroya to address things like, obviously, her Muslim guilt, which, you know, she brings up, like, that, obviously that's what she calls it, her Muslim guilt. And it allows the character also, I think, to work out a little bit more about herself, what she wants, and within the character's situation, I don't think she would have got that from a lot of other situations. Like, I think that the aspect of dating a white British atheist boy, like, helped her address those, like, questions that she had, and I don't think she would have been able to address a lot of them without that situation. But yeah, like, there was a few things, like, definitely missing without a doubt. But, like, yeah, by the end of it, I did kind of have that, oh, everything's kind of slotted into place now, this is nice kind of feeling. So, like, I wasn't against the ending, would have preferred a few bits more from it, but I definitely wasn't against it.
Right.
So that's good. And Sydney, you have said that you totally agree with everything being said. Thank you. But no, so that was our last question. So if anyone else has any general thoughts or like these, the only thing I will say is, to be fair, so I'm not sure if you'd like be able to see it on camera so well, but like, my color system for my tabbing is like, the pink is the wee romance scenes, the sort of darker blue you can see is the sad bits when, like, they break up and stuff, but all the other tabs are like green, and green is just what I use for like things that, like, I like just in general, like cool quotes or like things like that. And I will say, I thought there was a lot, especially in the first like third of this book, there was actually a lot of quotes and sort of just like thoughts that I ended up tabbing because I thought like they just made like a really good point. And like, one of my favorites, I think, was on the chapter from Neda's perspective, back when she decided to wear the hijab after the situation with nearly being abducted in the car. And I liked that she was talking about the government regime in Tehran at the time, and how the Reza Shah at the time was calling, you know, women, like, you know, wear your mini skirts, like, don't wear the hijab, you know, like, be like, you should be free. And I like that she then goes to say, however, it's his version of freedom. But Neda thought the whole point of freedom was to have choice. What was the point of freedom if it meant you were uncomfortable and not actually allowed to quite be yourself? How was that freedom? And I just really liked that one. I liked that, and again, sorry, girl walking into being abducted. There was drama in this book.
There was
Charlie.
a lot of drama in this.
There was a lot kind of like happening.
Yeah, it was kind of like a drama TV show. Like, not gonna lie.
We don't know what genre it was either.
Nope.
But no, I liked the and obviously, again, obviously I'm not Muslim, so I don't obviously have like I can't have an opinion on like if this is accurate or not, but I actually liked for once that in the story we were having like the obviously Neda, the mum, was saying that she wanted to wear the hijab rather than obviously you do see a lot of misrepresentation where it's like I've seen a lot of like the Muslim book reviewers that I follow on Bookstagram, like, you know, talking about like, oh, women taking off the hijab for like a man, how that would like never happen and things. So I thought it was really interesting that in this book the character decided she wanted to put the hijabi on, especially at a time where her country was like encouraging the woman to like not wear it. I thought that was really cool.
I have the same thing. I thought that was really cool. I also really appreciated that while her mom was the only fully practicing Muslim in their family, that she didn't force them to do it. She did still expect them to some extent live by the rules that she had set, which were obviously set within her faith, but she wasn't going to make them wear a hijab and she wasn't going to do any of that. So I think that was like, I appreciated that. I also will say this had nothing to do with the book except for the fact that I work in retail. And I was so completely just annoyed with the boss at the clothing store that she worked at. Because I marked it with red because I was so mad because she said Guy often put Soraya in uncomfortable situations where she had to bear the brunt of customers' aggression. And I was like, absolutely not. Where is this man? I'm murdering him. We do not do that. You put yourself in that situation, not some person who's clearly very uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, so you're a good manager and you would not let your staff be abused.
Yeah.
Sydney, I'm gonna need you to explain this one because I'm not I don't know if I'm not in on the clue like here, if I'm not in on the gossip, but why is it weird that this was published by Penguin Random House? I'm curious. I don't know the answers to this question. And Charlie goes, flat color cartoon covers are automatically fluffy romances in my brain. And I agree because you look at this cover and you do think that, like, you know, the little tagline being opposites attract, but do they fall in love? Like, you definitely did not see half the plot twist in this book coming because, like, yeah, it is not marketed for what it is, which is a shame because I think if it was, it's also still a really cool, like, it's still a really, like, I think the content of the story is still really cool. It's just, yeah, I don't think it was marketed to what it is. Normally, books published by the Big Six undergo more editing. Okay, then this book did, in my honest opinion. The length and clumsiness of some of the writing just didn't scream Penguin to me. It's Karina!
It is. We never see the bean.
We never see Karina.
Yes, we never see Potato.
Potato, potato, potato.
Oh, hold on, Charlie. I think this was the cover you saw. I'm pretty sure this was the one that you saw.
Yeah, the American cover pops up a lot more, but this is the British cover here. I just love the absolute difference as well.
Every time we hold up books, they're always different.
But yeah, no, that's that. Sydney, to be fair, this point about the editing is yeah, quite interesting. My one, yeah. My one, to be fair, isn't Penguin. Unless this is owned by Penguin. Because my one's Arrow. Oh wait, it's owned by Penguin. Doesn't matter. I was say mine is Arrow Books, but that's a subsidiary of Penguin apparently.
Yeah.
I do love this.
I know. Oh my goodness. Funny. But yeah, those are my only like general thoughts.
Yeah. No, same. I love that. I love the little kitty. She looks so cute.
We love Potato. Now it's just finding Nala, who will not make an appearance, but maybe next time.
Eventually, we'll just get all three cats on the screen.
Yes.
No, I mean, if no one else has any more general thoughts, then we can bring the live show to an end. October, obviously, we are now in October, and it is obviously spooky season.
We like
So, our book of the month for October is obviously well, it was picked to be like a thriller. And I never get the name right. The Last Thing He Told Me.
Yeah, the last thing you
Yeah.
told me.
So if you're reading that, the live show will for the discussion will be announced later on.
We're still trying to decide because it's seeming like it may fall on Halloween, but we're not sure if that's like an actual like for the non-Americans probably fine. For the Americans, while it is a Sunday, may not be the best option because we all really enjoy our Halloween. But yeah, so we'll announce it when we finally make a decision.
You are very welcome, Sydney. Thank you for joining us. I also had fun. I always have fun with these, to be fair.
I do. I enjoy being able to sit and talk about the books rather than just like type about them.
Yeah, but no, obviously the Discord is open as we read October's books, and then obviously we'll come back to YouTube for October's discussion at some point, either at the end of October or the start of November.
Yes.
But yeah, I will click end on the broadcast then, and I will see you all later.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.